June of 2022 is over, and unless you count the entire rest of the games industry right now, it's essentially been the month of Sonic. Sonic Prime got a few more seconds of new footage, Sonic Origins came out, and we've seen tons of news about Sonic Team's latest attempt at winning their audience back after a few less than stellar games. Just kidding, Sonic's audience never left, and of course we're all once again unconditionally excited for whatever the insert overused nickname here is up to next. Now that we've had the entire month to witness every possible chunk of Sonic's Sonicness grace our screens, I think now's the time to cover all of it at once. Sonic Origins is now available, and obviously it's turned out to be a fantastic widescreen compilation of some of Sonic's best games, which is what I wrote in the script before the game came out. I thought I could write ahead of myself a little bit and just assume that there wouldn't be any issues with Sonic Origins. After all, how do you mess up a collection of the original Sega Genesis Sonic games? But here we are. Listen, you can certainly do a lot worse, I know. Sonic Origins has some pretty fantastic animated cutscenes and even some remastered old animated cutscenes. The illustration gallery has content that I've never seen before, and the widescreen versions of these games are generally solid. I'm thankful that I can finally officially play Sonic 3 and Knuckles in this format. It's just, man, Sonic Mega Collection is my history with Sonic. This is how I got into these games. So obviously I'm going to have a bias here, but I think it's a little embarrassing when that collection of games from 2002, literally 20 years ago, has exponentially more value than Sonic Origins. More games, more unlockables, more extras, and need I mention the stellar presentation. Mega Collection and the supplementary Gems Collection both have some of the most legendary gallery music in video game history, and Sonic Origins doesn't play music at all when you're in the gallery. It's dead silent unless you go through this confusing process of setting up a playlist comprised of older songs, many of which aren't even labeled properly to begin with. I've heard other reports about glitches and bugs in the games themselves, but I'll be honest, I don't really care about that. I think the ports of the games themselves are just fine. Sonic 3's bastardized music notwithstanding. But I suppose I just expected a little bit more out of the heart and soul of this collection, you know? There's more to game compilations than just featuring a bunch of old games. It has to have a personality of its own. Just look at the Mega Man Legacy collections by Capcom. Sonic Origins isn't that, it just feels rather basic in comparison. I appreciate the animated cutscenes, I really do, but would I have swapped those out for better menus, a more comprehensive art gallery, original music, and possibly more games? Yeah, I think so. It's also been confirmed by now that Simon Tomley and his team were under some pretty strict deadlines from Sega to get this out the door, and man, don't you just love it when Sega does that? It's honestly pretty nasty and definitely frustrating, but whatever. If you want to pay $40 to play widescreen versions of the original Sonic games on your console or PC, then there you go. Wait for a price drop. Until then, just stick to the Mega Collection, you'll be fine. I definitely went off script for those past few sentences, so I have no real way of segueing into this, but Sonic Prime, right? I'm gonna be dead ass serious with you guys. I'm not interested in this show. I'm not interested in talking about it. I don't care. It's not that it looks exceptionally bad, it's just, what is there to say about it? Sure, Big the Cat is in it. Shadow the Hedgehog is in it, even though he looks terrible for some reason. And yeah, Sonic's new Canadian voice actor, Devin Mack, sounds fine, I guess. He certainly sounds a lot younger than our old friend RCS, and that's good, but the small amount of dialogue we've heard so far, I don't know. I don't have much hope for the writing of this Netflix children's show. Who could have guessed it? So there you go. Keeping with the Sonic Tuber gold standard of it's not clickbait if you mention everything from the title and thumbnail, there's all my thoughts on Sonic Prime. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about Sonic Frontiers. It feels like only yesterday I was sitting in my bedroom at my parents' house, recording my review of Sonic Forces with the worst audio setup anyone has ever heard, and declaring that Sonic Team was clearly an exhausted and burnt out studio in need of restructuring. Fast forward to about 5 years later, and it would seem nothing has really changed at all. We've still got the same director, what looks to be the same awkward controls, the same blatant reuse of old assets, and the same corporate cynicism with which good old Sega of Japan always seems to excel. Sonic Frontiers, from the looks of everything I've seen, is Sonic Forces with tons and tons of filler. It would seem that Sonic's idea of an open world game is to take the usual obstacle courses found in other Sonic games and throw each individual piece haphazardly all over the place. That's fun, right? Instead of letting each obstacle stylishly lead to the next, Sonic now has to spend time running toward every spring, rail, and boost pad one by one with no real sense of thought or cohesion. At the very least, that was the impression I got when the game was first shown by IGN. And to a degree, I still believe that. This world map looks like a complete mess. While I was in the process of writing this script, cyberspace levels were finally introduced for the game, and these seem to be the more traditional 3D Sonic levels that we've come to know and expect. I suppose that's cool, but again, the world map just seems like filler to me. I don't think that's going to be a lot of fun to travel through. I could be wrong. After all, I've heard reports of the controls in this game being a lot better than they were in the likes of Sonic Forces and beyond. We've also heard that these cyberspace levels are more in line with Unleashed than, let's say, something like Sonic Forces. But I don't think that really amounts to much. Because first off, I thought Sonic Frontiers was supposed to be a paradigm shift for the series. Takashi Iizuka has really been hyping this one up as the next new first step in 3D Sonic, just like Sonic Adventure was over 2 decades ago. Why is it then that these levels are even comparable to the Boost era games that came before it? I thought this was supposed to be the game that reconsidered what 3D Sonic even is or can be, just like Sonic Unleashed did in 2008 and just like Sonic Adventure did in 1998. And second off, do you really trust a member of Imagine Games' Sonic Was Never Good network to understand the difference between Forces level design and Unleashed level design? I, for one, do not, and I think I can say the same for just about every other publication that's been talking about this game also. More recent footage has also shown Sonic in enemy encounters that I guess are supposed to invoke character action games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, and I suppose if they're gonna try that again, it is better off with just Sonic and not some feral abomination also coincidentally named Sonic. I won't lie, this part of the game looks like it might be kind of enjoyable, but purely based on the merit of the games it's clearly mimicking. Besides, I'm still not convinced that this will do much to maintain Sonic's nature as a fast character. Part of the speediness in Sonic games usually comes from the fact that enemies are most often killed in one hit instead of several. This is the #1 reason why games like Sonic 06 and Sonic Heroes have become damn near unplayable to me. So we've got an aimless field that severely neuters Sonic's fast-paced action game roots, combat that slows down the pace even further than that, and returning levels like Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant, everybody. You guys love those places, right? Even the side-scrolling sections are back, y'all. Aren't you excited? I swear, dude, how long are we gonna keep doing this? I would love to be cautiously optimistic for a Sonic game for the 10th time in my life, but I can't. Not this time. I'm sorry. At my age, and with the time that I've had to witness this series play out over the years, it's clear to me now, more than ever, that Sonic fans and Sonic Team have completely different agendas when it comes to this series. Sonic Team loves chasing trends. They love creating whatever is marketable and popular. Be damned if the idea works well as a Sonic game or not. What's the craziest, hippest, newest thing that we can put Sonic in next? Weapon toting? Let's fucking go. Character action brawlers? Alright! Retro throwbacks? Oh, that's easy. We'll barf out a handful of those. Mysterious, non-linear sandbox open world bullshit? Sign me the hell up! This isn't about evolving 3D Sonic in a logical and rational way. No, it's about what's gonna get us on the cover of Game Informer magazine. I hope that come the end of this year when the game is out, I'm eating my words. I want to be wrong. I truly do. I want to enjoy this game and consider it an amazing step forward for 3D Sonic, but I'm not expecting it to be that. Either way, as always with Sonic, we shall wait and see. Alright, so we did it! We've managed to cover every major bit of Sonic news in the past 10 minutes or so. That's pretty cool. I'm a little bit confused though, I guess because I'm still getting back into this. I thought Sonic-focused content creators had way more time to talk about this stuff every week or so. I'm not sure what I'm missing here, but I guess that means I better start lining up a couple months worth of additional Sonic content to hold us over until Sonic Frontiers comes out. I suppose I can give you guys my opinions on Sonic Heroes and how terrible that game is. I can tell you guys why Sonic's characterization in Unleashed is actually rather boring and uninspired. We can discuss how Sonic Forces actually isn't all that bad. We can talk about how Sonic Runners needs to come back. No, hold on, I got this. We can, Street Fighter 6 looks incredible. This is the aesthetic facelift the series has needed for decades, and I am thrilled to see all the inspiration taken from Third Strike, the best Street Fighter game. I'm in love with all the new character designs we've seen so far, to the point where even someone like Luke is growing on me now. The gameplay looks impactful, stylish, and exciting, like a Capcom fighting game should. And I gotta say, that music from the trailer alone has single-handedly given me at least a few pounds of muscle mass, as it's become my primary workout track. I actually made an extended mix of the song myself that includes the verse that for some reason was omitted from the official music video. That'll be linked below if you're interested. SF6 truly was the last step Capcom needed to take toward fully reclaiming their legendary status, and I am so here for it. Absolutely my most anticipated game at the moment. That's not to say Capcom didn't have more to show these past few months though. Resident Evil 4 is certainly on my radar as someone who is introduced to the series with the fantastic remake of RE2. As of this writing, I am a fake gamer who hasn't yet played the original RE4, but I look forward to trying it out in preparation. The environment definitely looks a lot spookier this time around, and the characters are a lot, hotter. Just saying. And if you're still itching for some classic wacky video game insanity during this era of hyper-realistic AAA titles, there's Exo Primal. I'll keep an eye on this one because even though I'm not a huge fan of these online-focused shooting games, this one is just stupid enough to have my attention. Even our beloved Hideaki Itsuno is back again with an upcoming sequel to Dragon's Dogma. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know or care a whole lot about that, but I just want an excuse to talk about how much I love this man. He is a rock star of the gaming industry, not only responsible for some of Capcom's greatest fighting games, but also for setting the standard in 3D action games with the Devil May Cry series. I cannot stress enough that DMC5 is one of my favorite video games of all time. It's astounding just how good it turned out to be after an 11-year hiatus for the series. This is how you revive a franchise with confidence and style, and I know this for sure because the game's E3 2018 reveal trailer is what pulled me into the series as a whole. Also, after playing through the entire series, it's kind of insane how DMC5 turned Nero, a character I was kind of indifferent to in his first appearance, into literally one of my favorite gaming protagonists. The multifaceted and diverse action of Devil May Cry continues to live on in games from other companies as well. Square Enix's Final Fantasy XVI has former Capcom employees crafting a jaw-dropping real-time combat system, and that's the main reason I'm excited for this game. I'm not exactly media literate when it comes to old-fashioned high fantasy stories, but if there's anything that can pull me into the genre, it's Square Enix's trademark stylishness. Giant cinematic kaiju battles with diverse gameplay styles, that, my friend, has Brian Caleb Salter written all over it. But not quite as much as Square Enix's other upcoming mainstream RPG, and the sequel to my favorite game of 2020. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is looking to be the Evangelion 2.22 of this ongoing remake project, as it seems we're about to start breaking the rules of what FF7 even is. Personally, I'm here for it. Whenever story events change and whatever stays the same, I'm positive this will be an enjoyable follow-up to the much more straightforward Midgar chapter, which had possibly the most fun RPG gameplay I think I've ever experienced. More of that is almost guaranteed to make this the game to look out for in late 2023, or early 2024, they weren't exactly clear on that. I seriously can't wait to spend another few dozen hours with the most attractive characters in gaming. That said, Nomura and the gang can take all the time they need with Kingdom Hearts 4. Intriguing as it may be, I am in no rush to play this. I'll be honest and say I wasn't ready for it to be announced so relatively soon after the long-delayed Kingdom Hearts 3, which I had lots of mixed feelings about. This is a series I've only recently gotten into, so without a hint of nostalgic bias, I can tell you that Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 are some of the most badass games I've ever played, especially 2. I couldn't give much of a shit about the extended lore beyond these these first few games, which is why I skipped nearly everything in between 2 and 3. So I guess I kinda did this to myself. At this point, I'd rather Nomura just forget about this series and make Virum Rex a real game or something, but I suppose that's not entirely his decision, you know, with Disney being involved, of course. All I can really say now is that I hope KH4 is a fresh start for the series' laughable storyline and can just be a fun game in and of itself. Also, I hope to God this isn't what Sora's default design is going to look like in the final game. Speaking of ambitious new games starring iconic characters from our childhoods, that's going to be my best segue yet. Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 2, Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a pretty safe bet for 2023's Brian will buy and enjoy this list. Can I be honest? It took me years to finally understand why people like these modern Spider-Man games. But I will say, I recently replayed the original game and had much more fun than I did the first time. Despite its issues with occasionally playing itself and with the annoying side characters, this game is a solid blueprint for a polished and deep interactive Spider-Man experience. We even got a tiny sample of improvements with Miles Morales, and I'm hopeful that this proper sequel will trim the fat even more, while adding to the complexity of the action and swinging mechanics. Plus, it's got Venom, and I like Venom. Unless we're talking about his movies. I haven't seen them, but hey, I still like Venom. Actually, aren't Insomniac also making a Wolverine game? Hey, I'm listening. Just please, don't make this The Last of Us with Logan. That already exists as a movie, and I like that movie, but I want this to be different from that. I want some fun and video gamey horseshit with diverse combat options. Also, you better give me the option to play as the loud, highlighter yellow, Jim Lee, Marvel vs. Capcom, Let's Go Bub version of Wolverine as a costume. Do it, you won't. Insomniac, I love you guys, I really do. I've been buying and playing all of your new games ever since I swapped over to the PlayStation camp a few years back, but I'm worried you might be leaning a bit too much into the trappings of modern cinematic award bait games, you know? Stick to your guns, keep the control in the player's hands, and don't lose your edge. I really enjoyed the most recent Ratchet & Clank, but even as someone who hasn't grown up with that series, there's something about this patronizingly written kids game script that just doesn't quite feel right. Regardless, I'm glad to see you're still keeping mascot-focused action games alive in such a capacity. Speaking of which, to anyone watching this, y'all better go buy those Klonoa and Pac-Man remakes. I, for some bumblefucked reason, haven't even played these games before. I'll be jumping in for the first time here, but this is a genre that needs to stay alive in the mainstream. In case you haven't been clued in by now, I'm kind of a fan of Scrimblow-Bimblow games. I want to see them stay alive, relevant, competitive, and diverse. Ah, yeah, and the Cuphead DLC just came out. That's gonna be so sick when I get around to it. Sentinel had better make an action figure of Miss Chalice, okay? That's all I'm asking. What else? There's DNF Duel, the new anime fighting game with Arc System Works graphical sorcery behind it. I haven't played this one yet, but it's awesome to see Aiding, the studio behind Capcom's best fighting games of the century, back with this genre. I don't know a damn thing about Dungeon Fighter, but with character designs this cool on the surface, do I even need to? I am dog shit at fighting games, despite them being one of my favorite genres, and one of the main reasons I keep coming back to them is because they always seem to be pushing the limits of creative visuals and striking characters. It goes without saying that Guilty Gear Strive is in a league of its own here. I will never, ever care about the story. I just love seeing these outlandishly hot anime characters move around and smack each other in 3D. I have to commend Arc System Works for pushing the medium as a legitimate way to convey the anime aesthetic. In other industries, this artistic movement has only gotten more interesting with the works of animation company Orange, who've taken it upon themselves to revive the classic Trigun in 3D. I am actually blown away by how much I don't think this looks like ass. It only took about 5 seconds for Vash's new design to grow on me, and this new project is looking to make me into a proper fan of Trigun. If nothing else, I hope this brings even further mainstream attention to the original creator, Yasuhiro Naitao. You might remember that I covered one of his works several years ago in my review of Kekkai Sensen, which I hope to God can one day get a complete English release in its original manga form. On the topic of 3D facelifts for classic franchises, I certainly can't wait to watch the 90-minute video game cutscene Dragon Ball Super Hero. What kind of title is that? Cheekiness aside, this is certainly A bold decision to make after the shockingly incredible reimagining of Broly. Anything would have a tough time following that, but Dragon Ball is one of those things I'll always be paying at least some attention to. And I'm totally down to keep watching these new movies as they come out. Gotta support those new manga-accurate character designs after all. You know, as jaded as I've become about new anime, it seems there's always at least 1 or 2 projects every year that pull me back in, and for the past decade, Studio Trigger has always been involved in keeping me a fan of the medium at large. As much of a fuck as I do not give about Cyberpunk 2077, my ass will be planted on day 1 to watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the new Trigger anime made in collaboration with CD Projekt Red and directed by the man, the myth, the legend, Hiroyuki Imaishi. His punchy and kinetic style of animation and filmmaking never fails to make a splash in the current anime industry. I'm certainly biased here, I know. It's no secret that Gurren Lagann is my favorite show of all time, and Imaishi's other directorial projects don't really fall too far behind that. I'm just as excited for the revival of Panty and Stocking as the rest of you, and I also have to take this opportunity to recommend the feature film Promare to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. This is one of the craziest and most enjoyable action genre experiences I've ever had in a theater, and I'd even go as far as to call it the red line of its decade. It's worth noting too that this is essential viewing for anyone with an interest in high-quality English voice acting, as I fully believe that Promare's dub is far superior to the Japanese original. It's led by the duo of industry legend Johnny Young Bosch, as well as the amazing young talent gone far too soon, Billy Kometz. His performance as Gallo is the highlight of his unfortunately short life and career. I'll surely be coming back to this movie again and again to be inspired by everything and everyone involved with it, especially him. Classic anime film fans also have plenty to enjoy this year with the remastered Project A-ko, a 1986 flick that I only just had the pleasure of watching for the first time, thanks to Discotek's wonderful new release. This movie really is just Anime the Anime 1980s edition, and I kind of love it for that. It might not have the strongest writing or the best characters ever, but it doesn't really need to. It's a comedic and action-packed showcase of pure animation talent from the time, with some fascinating historical significance for anime fans in the West. It's the media from this time period that acts as such a bastion for technical proficiency in animation. Your eyes have simply not been opened to the pinnacle of 2D human anatomy in motion until you've seen Street Fighter II, the animated movie. I could write an entire video essay about how much I love this one shot that I'm showing on screen right now, and it's not even my favorite part of the movie. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I like this film more than Street Fighter II, the video game, in all of its incarnations. These characters have almost never looked better, and this shit just makes me obsessed with musculature. That's twice now that Street Fighter has pushed me to exercise more. The 80s and 90s were also a golden era for mecha anime, holy god. The art of hand animating machinery is dying in the modern day, but you can see the best of it on full display in Gao Gaigar, which is essential viewing for anyone who's enjoyed shows like Gurren Lagann, Genorobo, and Gunbuster. A lot of G's there, I see. Gunbuster itself is actually next in line for a premium release by Discotek, complete with a brand new English dub. Didn't see that coming, and man, I cannot wait for more people to be introduced to Hideaki Anno's debut as a series director for anime. Alright, now that I've said his name out loud, you probably know where I'm going with this. I've got to talk about Evangelion for a sec. The final entry in the Rebuild film saga, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, was incredible. I truly mean it. I can understand some of the mixed responses from Eva's core fandom, but this movie totally stuck the landing for me. It cements the new theatrical editions as a modern reimagining and commentary on Eva's legendary status in the industry, somehow successfully delivering the same message all over again for today's audiences. It may never have the same legendary historical status as the original End of Evangelion from 1997, but in my opinion, it's just as good of a movie. The film is set to reach theaters in North America via G-Kids later this year, and believe me, I'll be the first in line to take my friends to see Hideaki Anno's animation swan song. At least that's what appears to be the case now that Anno has shifted almost completely to live-action work, with modern tributes to Japanese pop culture icons like Godzilla, Ultraman, and coming soon, Kamen Rider. The latter of these franchises is something that I personally had a blast getting into over the past year or so, and my fingers are crossed that Shin Kamen Rider can reach American shores as soon as possible. If you've ever loved or felt nostalgic for series like Power Rangers, Kamen Rider as a whole is something you should definitely check out. I personally recommend either Kuga or 01 as a good starting point, although 2016's Kamen Rider Build is my personal favorite. And like, shit dude, I could go on and on. There's plenty of cool American movies coming out, animation projects that make me want to get off my ass and update my demo reel again, and wider access to hobbies that I enjoy like figures and model kits than ever before. Alright, so this video has gotten really long and I don't exactly feel like collecting any more footage, so we're just gonna end things here. You understand the message that I'm trying to convey here, right? We all have our favorites, we all have our hyperfixations, we all have our communities. I understand and respect that. I have tons and tons of first-hand experience with that. But what I also believe is important is the value of outside perspective. I think it's healthy to go beyond our comfort zones every so often. In fact, staying overly closed off and attached to one thing is rather unhealthy if you ask me. This video, more so than probably any other video I've done, has been made almost entirely for me, myself. It is about damn time I start expressing more of who I am and what I enjoy on this platform, and that's going to mean stepping outside of the one thing that most of you are probably tuned in for. Don't worry, I know what you probably want to ask. Yes, I will still be covering you-know-what closer to the end of the year after it comes out. But until then, and beyond, I think it's about time we expanded our horizons over here. How exactly, when exactly, or even what exactly, I don't know yet. But I suppose that's all part of the fun, right? Thank you all so much to whoever stuck around this long and watched the whole thing. I know I definitely clickbaited you guys a bit with this one, so for those of you who still have goodwill toward me after that, I appreciate it immensely. And hey, if you feel like unsubscribing or leaving a nasty comment down below, then hey, go for it, I can't stop you. I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have to say about this one. I really poured a lot of my heart and soul into it. The person I am now is a whole hell of a lot different than the person I was, man, 3 years ago now when I made that finale to the original version of this channel, and I still consider it that. Everything after that point is sort of a new chapter, a new version of me. It's time now more than ever to express myself, and before I start talking in circles, again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.